Before we begin, I'd like to welcome my friend from Russia, Igor Kokorov. We're going to have subtitles throughout the movie to explain what this expert on the economic and national debt crisis is saying. Give us a wave. He says hi. You're probably wondering, what the heck is national debt? What is budget deficit?
Well, we're here to drop some knowledge.
National debt, or government debt, is the total amount of money that the government has borrowed from any source. Every level of government, from the federal to the municipal levels, can have its own debt. All these debts are included in the total national debt. Budget deficit is the amount by which a government exceeds its income over a particular period of time.
There are two types of national debt, internal and external. Internal debt is funds borrowed from sources within the country. The money for this type of debt is raised by selling securities, government bonds, and bills. External debt is funds borrowed from foreign leaders. This can include in private sectors, other countries, and the International Monetary Fund, or the IMF.
Revenue for the government comes from collecting taxes and providing services. Governments cannot go bankrupt because they would stop providing services and another government would have to take their place. The governments must report their spending and borrowing activities to the federal government. They have the right to refuse to sign loans, cancel debts, and remove the government leadership from office.
The United States has had debt since its founding. Social programs enacted during the Great Depression and the buildup and involvement in World War II caused the largest increase, a 16-fold increase in the gross national debt from $16 billion in 1930 to $260 billion in 1950. The outstanding debt held stable for the next 25 years, going up to $283 billion in 1970 from $242 billion in 1946. However, over the last 30 years, beginning with the deficit spending from the Vietnam War and 1970s recessions, the overall debt has increased under every president.
Tax rates, interest rates, and inflation are just a few areas affected by the national debt that can affect some Americans on the personal level.
The government will either reduce spending or raise taxes to avoid bankruptcy.
If the government decides to attack the national debt by curtailing spending, government benefits may be reduced significantly. Programs will also be cut, which could affect anything from federal student financial aid to Medicare.
Rising national debt will eventually result in the reluctance of investors in foreign governments to purchase treasury bonds, thereby forcing interest rates to rise. That means that you will have to pay more for your auto loan, home loan, credit cards, and all other lending products. And also, when the government gets frantic to pay off national debt, it intends to allow the value of the dollar to plummet so that it can repay its debt in cheaper dollars. This is bad news for us because that means we'll have to pay more with rampant inflation.
The current debt of the United States is around 15 trillion. Earlier in 2011, the United States government came really close to defaulting on its debt. To avoid crisis, President Barack Obama signed into law the Budget Control Act of 2011 to raise the debt ceiling and gradually reduce federal spending. The debt ceiling is like a self-imposed credit card limit for the government. Under the Constitution, the federal government borrowing, and so raising the ceiling, must be approved by the Congress.
Well, $10 to $12 billion per month, $196 billion just for next year's request alone, that's a big chunk of change. And so if we can phase down the war in Iraq, that's going to start helping us on the money front. I do think that we've got to create a more efficient Washington. I have called for more transparency and accountability when it comes to things like earmarks. We have to prioritize how we're spending money in Washington. And I just think we're spending it in the wrong places.